Hello, welcome everyone. In. Welcome everyone. Depending on where you are in the world, good morning, buenos dias, or good afternoon, buenas tardes. We're happy to have you join us for our Latina Equal Pay Day event today. We're so excited to bring you this event today. Please continue to share where you're joining us from in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. It's an honor to be here with you all and welcome you to our HACE comunidad and community. I'm Lisandra Jimenez. I will be your host for today's event, and I serve as our current Director of Leadership Programs for HACE, so the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement. We're so excited to have you. As we get started today, I do just want to acknowledge briefly the current state of our world. Unfortunately, is not very positively impacting our communities. So I just want to briefly acknowledge that and let you all know that as you are showing up today, however you are, is just fine. We'd love for you to engage with us today in the chat. We'll have opportunities for you to come off mute and be able to share. But depending on where you are and what may be going on in your communities, however you can show up today is just okay. So we're definitely excited to have you here. Know that the tools that you're going to gain today, we hope that you can apply them at the right time, at the right moment that works for you. So definitely take away some tools in your tool belt that you can then apply to your workplace, your personal and professional goals, whatever that may look like for you and your journey. Right. As you can see on the screen, we are welcoming you to Latina Equal Pay Day. We're gathered here for our Latina Equal Pay Day event this year, and really representative of just that stark reality of our professional lives. We still see that Latinas on average are earning just 54 cents for every dollar that non-Hispanic men earn. So in order to match white men and what they make in a year, Latinas actually have to work nearly 22 months. Okay, so take that in, reflect on that a bit. We still continue to really see this wage gap, and it's not just a statistic, but it's really our lived story of many of us that we have in the room, many colleagues that we have, and our families as well. So we really hope that today can be especially significant for you and for this movement, knowing that today does mark 10 years of tracking this pay gap, as you can see on the screen. So we have 10 years of data, 10 years of courage, and the continued advocacy, building of visibility and voices in this movement. And we're not yet finished with this work, so there's still work to be done. We're still en la lucha, like we like to say, right? And continuing this movement. I do want to bring your attention to our Latina Equal Pay Day toolkit. So feel free to scan on the screen here. It was created by Justice for Migrant Women and does give you some statistics, some facts that you can share on this day to be able to bring visibility and advocacy to this continued movement. So feel free to scan that to learn more and just uplift some of those stories in your own communities and in your own life that's impacting you in relation to Latina Equal Pay Day. Today, we'd really love to carry forward and continue this movement for justice, dignity, and really opportunity, right? It's an opportunity that we have to change the facts and the statistics that currently exist. So this event will be both a celebration, right? Because our communities are continuing to be resilient. We see courageousness, and we really exemplify leadership. But also, this is meant to be a call to action. So to everyone in the room here, it is your call to action to continue the fight for this movement to close this wage gap. So we're not just here to drop facts, but we're here to really transform them with you. And we hope that you can join us in that movement. So we really designed our agenda today to give you those practical tools and inspiration as well. We'll start our conversation today with Olga Camargo, who you'll learn about later, on embracing the role of la mujer as head of household and wealth generator. And then we'll continue that conversation by diving into real negotiation skills, strategies with Ruby Garcia, who you'll meet later on, to really help us claim our worth, our power at the table con confianza, right? With that confidence that we have to move forward. So we truly appreciate your presence here today and really know that your participation is what continues to fuel this movement, right? So let's make today a turning point for ourselves and for those generations to come, right? I see some more engagement in the chat. Definitely want to continue to encourage you to share those locations, encourage you to share any comments that you may have, any gems of knowledge that you hear from our speakers today, thoughts that you have throughout the event. Please do engage with us so that we can continue that conversation and elevate your voice here as well. All right, a couple of rules for us today. As we engage with one another, we just want to remind you of our code of conduct. We really want to create an atmosphere of respect, collaboration, openness, but also safety and equality for all. So note that with this code of conduct, we aim to create a safe space, free from judgment, so everyone's thoughts and perspectives are welcome. We encourage thought leadership. And we really want you to be able to utilize, as I mentioned earlier, chat, engage, comment. There'll be opportunity for you to come off mute and also share and participate in some of our activities later on. So stay tuned for that. And then when you're not speaking, make sure that you're muted so we don't get any background noise or distractions happening. All right. So, moving on to starting our program for today with our first speaker, who I'm very happy to welcome. We have Michelle Armstrong, who will be delivering some opening remarks for us. So, let me tell you a little bit more about Michelle as we introduce her. Michelle Armstrong is the managing director and president of the Aries Charitable Foundation, where she leads global philanthropic initiatives focused on economic opportunity, workforce readiness, and financial empowerment. Michelle is recognized for her leadership in accelerating equity, supporting entrepreneurship, and promoting personal finance education, all at the heart of reducing pay gaps, exactly what we're here for today, and building generational wealth. She holds degrees from Harvard University and Teachers College, Columbia University. So I'd love to welcome Michelle onto our virtual stage to give us some opening remarks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm so delighted to be here today just to take a few minutes to say how important this issue is to us at Aries Foundation and to me personally. I really appreciate it too, the comment that you made about this marking the 10-year anniversary of this effort. We are only 4 years old at the Aries Foundation, so we certainly have a lot to learn from you, but so far, just what we have been hearing today, and certainly our ongoing collaboration with HACE has both inspired and motivated the way we think about these issues. And so, just to talk a little bit about the Aries Foundation, we are the charitable grant making arm of a corporation called Aries Management, which is a global financial services firm that focuses on alternative investment management. So, it was in 2021 that the firm actually stood out the Aries Charitable Foundation as a 501c3 nonprofit within the corporate structure. And our focus, as was mentioned, is on helping individuals achieve economic mobility. And we look at that issue not only in the US, but really across the world. And for us, we see the pathways to advancing people economically are really through helping them prepare and reskill for quality jobs, helping them launch and scale businesses, and also helping them learn those personal finance skills that will help both them and their family as well as future generations. So when we think about this goal of helping people advance economically, it's really rooted in the concepts of economic equity and economic equality. We want to make certain that everybody is included in this opportunity to be economically and financially healthy, but we also want to make sure that individuals have access to those resources, to the knowledge, and to all the supports necessary in order to make that happen. And today's event particularly resonates with me, and this issue around the wage gap matters personally to me as a woman and especially as a woman of color. And at our work at the foundation, we have historically addressed some of these issues when it comes to women in particular. And that's why we're so honored to partner with ASE for a program that is particularly supporting Latina entrepreneurs, even as we have other projects that we're working on, for example, that support single mothers who are entrepreneurs, and programming that has supported women gaining those kinds of skills necessary in order to chart that pathway from poverty to prosperity. So, this goal of helping women and helping women of color is something that has been important to us at the Aries Foundation, not only because we feel we have a moral imperative to do so, but because we know that we have an economic imperative to do so as well. One of our goals, since we sit as the philanthropic arm of a corporation, is to think about how what we're doing through our grants and through our charitable support can actually inform and influence business practices, including about the issues of pay equity and pay equality. It's interesting because, in some of the research I was doing last year, I learned that the LDC, the Latino Donor Collaborative, had reported that the US Latino GDP reached about $3.6 trillion in 2022 and ranked as the fifth largest economy globally, even surpassing the economies of the UK, of India, and of France. And now, fast forward from that 2022 set of data to 2025 data, and the LDC is reporting that the purchasing power among Hispanic uh, individuals in the US is really substantial and it's quite growing. And it's now at over $4 trillion, according to the LDC. So it's important to recognize the purchasing power of our Hispanic population here in the US, but also globally, and the extent to which the population is representing a major demographic to retailers and to brands due to resilience, obviously to customer spending, and also to this rapid population growth, as we've talked about. So we see this as important not only to individuals who are being affected directly by potential wage gaps and inequity and inequality, but it's also important to business. So closing that gap actually will help to boost the bottom line of businesses. And we think and we believe that as a foundation, we can help make that argument by presenting the kinds of data that I just shared and the data that come out of the initiatives that we're funding, like our collaboration with HACE. So the bottom line is that this matters to us as a foundation. It certainly matters to Aries as a firm. And as I said earlier, it matters to me personally. We again are so delighted to be part of today's event. We're so honored to collaborate with Patricia and the entire HACE team. And we're excited to help launch today's special program. And again, just to echo the words of everyone here, we hope that you really take advantage of and leverage the resources and tools that are being provided because we believe that they can make a tremendous difference and offer a great amount of support. So thank you again to you for taking time today. And thank you to the entire HACE team for even designing and delivering this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for those incredible words and really just highlighting the power of our community, right? And a testament to you being here, that unity, that collaboration of communities that is really needed to break those barriers that we have in front of us. So thank you so much for your allyship, and your collaboration with us. All right, so hopefully that got you motivated to get us started for today. So avanzamos, we'll keep going forward to our next segment. And we've got a great fireside conversation on reframing financial narratives. So embracing la mujer as head of household and wealth generator. So we're going to invite Olga Camargo to our virtual stage to have this conversation with us. Before I do that, I want to share though, it's really important to know that at home, 86% of Latinas are primary shoppers. So that really makes them critical decision makers in the household in spending across industries, right? So here to help us reframe the role of la mujer as wealth generators is Olga Camargo. And let me tell you a little bit more about Olga before we get into our conversation. So Olga is the founder and CEO of Faro Associates LLC and SHENIX, a fintech app designed specifically to empower Latinas through culturally relevant financial education and wealth building tools. Over 20 years of experience in financial services, Olga's bringing that to the table and really works to center closing the US wealth gap, right? So, exactly what we're here today, faced by Latinas and also women of color, as just highlighted by Michelle as well. So she combines deep industry expertise with a passion for equity, having authored, pioneering research on the need for culturally tailored financial services. Olga has also been recognized as a leader and advocate, named among Chicago's most influential Latinos by Negocios Now, and one of Chicago's most powerful Latinos by Crane's Business. She serves on multiple advisory boards, including the Illinois State Treasurer's Hispanic Advisory Council, and a former chair of our very own Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement board as well. Through her work with SHENIX and Faro Advisory, Olga really drives financial empowerment and generational wealth creation with Latina communities at the forefront. So, Olga, welcome to our virtual stage. ¿Cómo estamos?
Well, I'm very happy to be here and just, this is a very special day. I know that we're coming together because we have to recognize and become more aware of our current situation as Latinas, but it's also a day where I think we have to collectively bring our strength together, right? And be able to say, you know what, it's time to change this. We really need to change this trajectory. And I'm here to not just, help with that rally, but also be able to take away a lot of that positive energy for myself. I'm being selfish there, but yes, that's why I'm here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, getting into our conversation, Olga, can you tell us a little bit more about your personal money story, how really cultural messaging within your family, within your community, right, has shaped those early beliefs that you developed around earning, around saving, and even investing?
Well, it's funny. I was asked about this not too long ago at another event, and as I thought about what actually influenced me when I was growing up, I I guess I put again, I started typing away that those thoughts, and I'm here to share with those a little bit more. I think I started to think a little about that a little bit deeper. And so here's what it was. So growing up, and just so you know, I'm a Gen Xer, so you're going to hear a couple of things here that I'm going to mention. We're like, yeah, that's probably more of a Gen Xer thing. But I was watching mainstream sitcoms like Growing Pains, The Brady Bunch, Family Ties,
Classic.
all of those families that had white collar parent right workers. They were not blue collar workers. They never seemed to have money issues. They seemed to be very organized with life as far as I could see. I mean, they lived in a very nice home. I didn't really see them ever really talk about no nos alcanza. It was always about something else, right? Something that they were going through, like just life issues. And so I realized that that was definitely not the show that my family was living, right? I had another perspective, but that was a glimpse into a life, right? That watching from initially a black and white TV screen to then a color screen, I started to realize that was something that was not part of my life. And I was definitely not part of that life, right? So I remember my family, it was more about like, having seen everybody getting up in the morning, lunches here, lunches there for the first job that we're going to go do, and then maybe a second job, and then another job on the weekend. And it was a sort of work forever in your life type of situation, right? And I just know that that was my upbringing until about 12, when my mother actually decided to launch her first business, which was a bridal shop. And she ended up opening up another two bridal shops on 26th Street, back of the yards here in Chicago. And so one of them was in a little village as well. And so that was sort of like the big break away from the blue collar job sort of, destination for everybody that was part of our family. And we were so excited. And you know what? She made lots of money. She made lots of money. I was there. I counted it. And so the thing is, we were always about, so it almost seemed like we were getting money and putting it like and sending it away, getting more money, like working hard, getting money and sending it away and sending it away. and away where we couldn't get no more because we had spent it all. Right. And I know that I was probably part of that too, because I'm sure I probably asked my mom for so many things that she was like trying to buy everything that she could for me. But the reality was that, in retrospect, right, when I look back, there were a lot of missed opportunities right there to, number one, I saw a lack of budgeting money. I saw a lack of saving money for rainy days, a lack of, and then there was a language barrier. So forget investments. I mean, that was just not going to happen. And it was definitely not going to happen because I was like 14 back then. They're trying to get me to help my mom understand a financial product. I'm trying to translate. That's not going to happen. That was not just because I knew a certain level of English. Definitely did not know. I knew then, but I tried to try to translate financial, terms. That was not.
Financial literacy. Yeah.
So, those are the things that sort of like I saw that were part of that was my world, right? And again, what I saw. But then the other thing that I saw that was very important, and I think that was sort of like that next sort of like, okay,
Catapult.
yeah, this is sort of like a big realization, right? We were a little village. Downtown Chicago is not that far. But you tell me how many times we actually went down there and hung out. Not a lot. Like we also didn't go to the lake, right? And so the one thing that I did know about downtown was that that's where the important people were making decisions. We certainly did have a financial district right on LaSalle. Chicago Board of Trade was there. Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Lots of important, epicenters of where you had ginormous deals being done in the millions at the time, right? And I just realized that, again, even looking into that, passing by, looking that was downtown over there that I could see from afar, was something that, again, I didn't belong to.
Probably
And
the same as you were seeing in the sitcoms, the dress, the way that they were representing themselves, right?
yeah, I mean, in my house, we really didn't dress with my dad didn't dress with the tie unless there was going to be like a funeral, there was going to be somebody getting married, and those outfits were really, counted, on one hand, maybe just two suits or whatever. But bottom line is like that was just not something that I was a part of. So as I finished, I knew that I watched those shows, and I always knew that I wanted to be a part of that. And so I wanted to belong, right? I think there was that longing because the Brady Bunch and the Family Ties people had shown me what could be possible, but at the time, only for them is what I saw, right? So it wasn't until I joined, I graduated from college, UIC, first time, because I went back for my master's, but first time I did graduate with a business degree, and I joined the financial industry, Chicago's financial industry, my first job, senior needs assistant at a commodities desk, there to learn everything. I was a sponge, had no clue what I was about to do. But, they trained me. And the biggest lesson was, yeah, just being part of it and being part of this important newswire agency that was basically feeding prices of grains and stock and whatnot to the traders at the Chicago Board of Trade, where they were making decisions based on the information that we were feeding them. And so that was exciting. But a bigger and more transformational lesson that I learned there didn't come from who I was working for, but who I was working with. And there was this woman who said, she was probably in her 50s, probably about my age. And she says, Olga, come here. And I go over there and she says, look at this. I'm like, I could not believe she was showing me her portfolio. I was like, okay, where I come from, we don't talk about that. How dare you show me that? That's so personal, so private, right?
Our investing portfolio.
Her investment portfolio at work. Yes, she had over $1 million. And
Wow.
I was like, what? I'm like, I can't. And she was just like, look. And it's like anybody passing by could just look down like, oh, I see you got $1 million, you know, whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that whole, wow, she's showing me this and it's a lot of money. And oh my gosh, she's rich. And she told me you can do the same. And I said, what? And it was at that point where I started thinking about, how am I going to do that? You know, look at her and look at me. I mean, she belongs and I don't. And that's really what I thought at the time. Okay. So, you know, I get to talk to her. Doris just became one of those people that I would always go to. And she just seemed like she knew what she was doing, clearly. Right. And then she told me I have properties because you see, Olga, the way it works is this way. She says, when you build this asset then buys the next asset. Then this asset helps you buy the next asset. You understand? It goes this way. I was just like, well, I guess the idea seemed to be the right idea. You know, it was the right chain reaction. However, I was like, I haven't even gotten started. I guess I'll have to see if that's true. Well, in
Right.
I did get to start saving a lot into my retirement account, and I made some mistakes along the way as well. The first time that I started saving into my retirement account, my little sister, Elsa, her 15th quinceañera was coming up. ¿Y qué hice? What did I do? I took out the money and I paid for the quinceañera.
Right.
So
So
I was young enough.
it sounds like that upbringing really influenced your decision to first go into the financial industry, but then also opened your eyes to, wait, what were we doing all that time with that money? Why didn't we start building this investing portfolio, right? To the point of having that business that your mom started.
Well, it's that, but then also understanding that once I did do the right thing, then I did the wrong thing, right?
Mm. That you
And
had
it's
to.
okay. And I'm sharing it because I know we've all done the wrong thing, right? It didn't seem the wrong thing at the time. I mean, in my 20s, why wouldn't I do that? I could just do it all over again. Well, I did, but what happened there was I had to start all over again, and then I gave up on the compounding interest, right? And earnings of those investments, right? That's what I did. And so luckily for me, you know, I still got another chance. Again, you do a mistake and then you got to go back and you got to do it again. And this time be wiser about it. Don't do it again. Okay. Just don't do that again. So, but what I did do is I started saving. I even like for some of I used to, then I worked at Chase. And at Chase, they had the ESOP plan. So employee stock option plan. So I went into that program. And so I had some Chase stock, right? And so I was there for maybe about 4 years, but I saved enough, right? Where then I transferred over to Measure Financial, where I eventually became an investment advisor, but I still kept adding to my investments, to my savings. I had learned, you know, in a short amount of time, I believe it was crazy how you know, I had again made money. I mean, I was already at $160,000 at that point in such a short amount of time, right? Because I was super focused, right? So then I started to obviously become more into well, what did I, you know, what did this mean, this money and this program 401k at the company? What did that mean? And I started becoming more like educated on it. I just decided I have to learn about this. What is this? And then I learned that you could actually take loans against it, right? Especially if you're going to buy your first home, right? So think about at that point, even though and I did take out money to be able to buy my first home, right? I did have to do that. But the truth of the matter is, wasn't that really what Doris had told me? Right? Doris had told
Your
me,
first one to continue the next one, continue the next one.
well, even
Right.
though you have to pay back, right? You have to pay it
Right.
back. The loan has to be paid back. However, I did do that. And then next thing you know, I've got this home, and then I started buying another home, right? So today I have not just homes here in Chicago, I have another one in another state and another one in Mexico. So it just starts to add up in terms of like how you do these things. And look at that, it's real estate, right? It's real estate, even though I'm on the investment advisory side of things, how one thing helps out the other, right? And real estate typically appreciates, right? I wasn't in the business of buying and flipping. That was never me. I'm always about buying and holding, buying and holding. And if there's an opportunity to also have tenants, I will have a tenant, right? Because what is that? That's called, in my book, financial resiliency. If something happens to me at that point, like I'm growing up, what if I lose my job when I'm going through my career? Well, guess what? I'm still going to have some help from either upstairs or downstairs tenant to be able to continue making my mortgage payment, whatever that is. Anyway, life went by. Clearly, I'm at my age now. A bunch of my property has already been paid off. And what does that mean? What do you have in your property when you have it paid off? Equity. It's equity. You can actually serve as your own bank. You can be your own bank. Okay, you've got collateral, you need a loan. Don't go to a bank and just say, hey, can I have this? Typically, especially on the personal side of things, it's hard to get a personal loan, right? So what happens? Now you paid for that home appreciated, your net worth went up, but now you have access to monies that you tied in. Latinos, that's the big thing with Latinos like to hold a lot of or buy real estate, and they're not wrong. They're not wrong about that. There will be probably more people in this world than there will be homes to live in or to own. So you think about those things that are scarce, and that's one of the things that's scarce, right? So in today, when I look ahead, and now this is me now looking ahead, I talk about with my girlfriends, and we talk about how, hey, the Social Security is not going to be enough. Not like I depend on it either, just so you know, because Social Security covers about like 30% of like what you're currently making if you have a benefit, if you're eligible for that benefit. And I'm like, how are we going to do this? And we talk about it all the time. We're like, we're going to go buy a couple of real estate properties together. And then we will go ahead and get some rental income for when we retire. So we can retire with dignity and have a lot of fun, you know what I mean? But that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that as we're doing things, every time there's somebody trying to tell you something where they've done it, you better pay attention. It's not like, yeah, whatever. No, they've done it. They clearly know what they're talking about. And it's about also you doing things. Maybe she never told me to take out the money, but I did. I did take out the money, and that was a mistake, but I didn't do it again, not in that reckless fashion for a party. I ended up taking a loan against it, my 401k, to be able to go into to be able to buy my first home, right? So these are the kinds of things that have happened for me. And it's interesting because I also, through that same retirement, I'm gonna just tell you, through that same retirement account that I had, I went into an alternative investment handled by certain custodians, which means it's not a typical IRA account. You have to go to certain custodians that have this. And that's where I made my investment into an investment firm out of Wall Street. And I became an equity owner and partner. Yes. And so I grew my book of business there, right? And most recently, that firm was sold. And so I was able to cash in on that long-term investment. And now I'm all about, okay, where are you in age? We're not going to go all crazy. We're not going to take that money and spend it. No, because you don't know what's up ahead. So what do? You invest it in a way that is appropriate with where you are age-wise and where you are risk-wise, right? Which for me right now, I can't be aggressive. I can't even be moderate. I'm more of a moderate, but that's just me. That's just me. I've got a child in college, right? He wants to go to medical school. I only had one. I thought it was one and done. Girl, it feels like I have three because he's going to go to medical school. So to me, it's like, okay, I have to make sure that I continue on the path that I am, slow but steady, slow but steady, slow but steady, on an upward trend, right? So these are the kinds, so now today what I try to do is I try to help out others understand this journey. Understand that it's not always going to be easy, because guess what? Sometimes you lose your jobs. That's not easy. But you know what? It's okay. It's going to be okay. You're clearly talented. You were working in something. You have some knowledge. Find that next opportunity and get back on the horse. That's what I'm going to say. Get back on the horse. And also, don't be afraid of going into related spaces, right? That sort of like build on what you're already doing. Like, okay, like for me, okay, so investment advisory. Yes, that's what I do. But I also have gone into creating a fintech. Well, it has to do with financial wellness, so it makes sense for me to go into that. And plus, it's in the AI world, which, if you're looking ahead, you should be participating, taking some, some calculated risk to being a part of the new era of where this world is going. So fintech for me was like the logical next step. And it's something I had thought about back in like 2018. And finally launched SHENIX alongside Patricia Mota and Juan Carlos Avila in 2020. So that just meant that what our goal was to be able to help others build their legacy. I think I'm on my way to building legacy. Certainly, ASE has helped me with that, with the scholarship in my name at UIC, my alma mater. But I want others to have their own legacy in whatever respect they want to have it, right? So
So yeah, it really sounds like it took you so much, I would say, planning, learning, growth, because you said at the beginning you didn't know it all when you were learning. You still had to make mistakes. You had to get probably mentorship, right? Grow. You had Doris, I think the name was, right? The person that was sharing with you. And it looks like we have a couple of commonalities in the chat here as well of folks who were seeing that same representation on TV, were didn't really talk about the money they earned with their parents and their, generation culturally, and not talking about money. And so that became a barrier, right? I want to pivot us to one question, Olga. As you mentioned, your mom was an entrepreneur, right? So one thing that we're seeing continuing to grow is Latina entrepreneurs and the way that they're fueling the economy, right? So what do you see as kind of the most exciting opportunity to really build generational wealth and cultural beliefs, how we can pass those on, right? And reframing to that next generation. So you were starting to get at the next generation there, but anything you can share there?
Yeah, no, one of the biggest things that I think Latinas are, number one, they're equipped. They're equipped to do whatever they need to do. I would just say this, look at what the needs are right now, right? And I'll give you an example of what I see that obviously applies to me, because I'm always trying to see, like, how can I add value, right? But check to see what you're doing right now that you can maybe help out with. Okay. For example, so one of the things that people need to think about, how do you really reach out to people nowadays? It's going to be through social media, right? So we all know that. We all know that. And and we participate in it. But where are you? Where are you creating a space for yourself within that platform where you bring your services, and always think about, now you're on the platform, that means you're easily at the US level, nationally, right? And also, like for me, I have to be with certain things only at a national level, because that's under jurisdiction, what my licenses permit me to do. I cannot touch anything outside of that. So understand that. But if you don't have that and you have something else, put it out there. It could be a product. It could be, there's so much need right now for Latino cultural products out there that people, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't even invented. I was talking, and I'm gonna just say it, we were having some drinks and we were talking about, like, sort of like the things that are out there that could be opportunities. And at one point, now my doggy's no longer with me, but I looked over at Tuck and I'm like, hey, there's nothing for the Latino dog out in here. Have you noticed that? We don't got nothing for Latino dog. I don't know, should they get some like scarves or something that have, like, whatever. And it was just stuff like that. I was just joking with that, but my son who's in college, he's like, yeah, you're right, Mom. There's like no Latino dog out there. Like, no. And so anyway,
Look for
whatever.
the opportunity in the
I would
market.
say those are the and people like to have fun with that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, that was just like that's just like a silly example, but The thing is that if you think about what might be a hit out there that you don't see, you know, there's nothing wrong with you putting a prototype together and try to see if it works out there and go to market. And you don't have to get it perfect. Please know that. You with one thing I've learned about Shark Tank, it's you do not need to get anything perfect. As long as you have a good concept and a good idea and you want to put out there, get out there. It doesn't mean you can always come back and enhance it, or you can have another iteration about it. So e-commerce is what I'm going to tell you. Like, you need to be part of e-commerce, whether that be through a product, whether that be through a service. Yeah, that could be within finance, that could be within healthcare, that could be you helping out with like other small businesses with their processes, whether that be like invoicing, whether that be like expense management, whatever it may be that you have the ability to do from your computer for them. Okay.
So
It could
much
even
accessibility nowadays. So
you and I'll tell you one last thing. I can only do certain things on my side, like on the investment advisory within the United States, because again, licenses only fall under the US jurisdiction, 50 states. But there are other things that I can do that are not related to, for example, FARO advisory. Right now, I'm talking about SHENIX. I'm gonna tell you something about SHENIX because nobody knows this. I don't think I've even told Patricia yet. We just got through signing off with Canada. There's a global wellness app that will be rolled out globally. And SHENIX has been invited to be part of that, certain excerpts, because we have English and Spanish now within SHENIX. SHENIX itself is now accessible in 173 countries because we just added Spanish to it.
wow,
Weeks ago, hot off the press, yes.
it's opening some doors.
Opening up a lot of doors, because guess what? What happens when people leave the United States for whatever reason? They've built a life here. They go wherever they are, but guess what they still have? Financial ties in the United States. They may have real estate. What did I say about real estate earlier? Are you in a position? I'm just asking, are you in a position, whoever it is right now, to be able to help out people that are abroad that need help with the real estate in the US? I just said something. Yes, you probably are in that position. Are you in a position with your finance where, like me, people are abroad, they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that account back in the US. Call me up. I can help you out. And why is SHENIX out there? Because SHENIX, no matter where you are, whether you're in the US or abroad, number one, has English and Spanish in it, which are, what are the top 3 languages in the world?
Those are two of them.
Spanish, Mandarin, I believe, is the next
I
one.
believe so.
Okay, we have 67% of the language in SHENIX. Yes, of worldwide. So it's going to be an app that wherever you are, like I forgot how they do that in the US. Well, go to SHENIX, it's free. Go in there, find the information. But these are the kinds of things that people need to think about. How can you help out, not just owning 2 languages if you do, or just understanding the community that like you do? What are those opportunities? These are massive global opportunities. Please understand that. And AI or some form of technology, some kind of platform will allow you to really be able to be that, and I would call it next millionaire, right? I think we're going to see a lot of millionaires. If estás poniendo atención, hazlo. And what are some of the things that you're going to hear from your family? Ay, no te metas en eso. Don't do that. That's crazy. Don't pay attention. Put the blinders on in that particular situation. Put the blinders on and just keep going. Keep going, because sometimes, and if you can team up with other people that really can put that vision, can make it better, share that vision of doing something that is beyond borders, that's where you should be.
So amazing, Olga. So congratulations on SHENIX. We have lots of love in the chat for you in comments on your accomplishments and the story that you shared today. Unfortunately, we do have to end the conversation, but thank you for dropping all of those gems and really just sharing that growth story, your learning journey, and some tools that we can really actionably take and move forward. So you heard it here. Leverage your bilingual skills, learn, grow, take the opportunity to flourish in those communities. Hay oportunidades out there. There's so much. So don't give up. Leverage those skills and bring them up. Bring them up to fill those gaps in the market. Absolutely. Gracias, Olga. Thank you for joining us today.
Hasta pronto, chicas. Bye.
Thank you. All right, I see some great engagement in the chat. So thank you all for continuing to engage, continuing to comment. That's what we love to see. We will move on to our next segment today and bringing up our next speaker, Ruby Garcia, to talk a little bit about salary negotiation. Now, this will be an interactive portion. So get ready to continue to engage in chat, off chat on audio. We'll call on you as well. So I want to say a little bit about Ruby before we get started. Ruby Garcia is a distinguished leadership coach and certified hypnotherapist based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, with roots deeply embedded in Chicago. Specializing in empowering first-generation Latina professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs, Ruby has dedicated her career to guiding high-achieving women, first-generation professionals, and Latinos through transformative personal and professional growth. Ruby's approach to is holistic and tailored, focusing on breaking through limiting beliefs and conditioning to foster healing, freedom, and joy. Her mission is to cultivate a new generation of powerful Latina leaders, redefining success and wealth on their own terms while embracing their rich cultural heritage. So, Ruby, welcome to the virtual stage. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know.
Absolutely. And while Ruby's doing that, I will share that the topics that she'll cover today, based on negotiation, money mindset, we do have these featured on some of our leadership programs that we offer here at HACE. So please do check out our Mujeres de HACE program and our Mujeres de HACE Entrepreneurs. So we did drop the link in the chat to Mujeres de HACE Entrepreneurs, currently open and accepting applications. So feel free to check those out as well to go even more in depth than we will today with some of these topics.
Okay.
Ruby, take it away.
I think my screen is showing the wrong one, right?
Oh, not sharing yet.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, you can't. Okay, let's give that a try
We
again.
can.
I can see it. I can see it now. Yep.
You can see, okay, give me 1 second. It's not on the right side. Let's see. Give me 1 second here.
No worries. Seeing some love in the chat. We did drop Ruby's LinkedIn there for you all to connect as well.
We're going to try this again.
All right. And we're seeing the
notes. Okay,
Yep.
give me 1 second. Let me swap it. All right, are we good?
Got it.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. All right, so, well, that was super inspiring to hear from Olga, wasn't it, everyone? I feel like all I keep thinking is like, I want to make money. Like, I want to do all of that. That's so super inspiring. So we're going to transition a little bit in the conversation, and I want you just to imagine right now that I said, guess what? I'm going to give you $10,000. And I want you to think about what your reaction would be. Would you be excited? And go ahead and drop it in the chat. Would you be excited? Would you feel like maybe like you have to hold on to it? Would you be worried about, oh my gosh, is she going to take it back? What would be the feelings that you have about that? And I'm asking you that because most of us have inherited stories about money. So one of my roles is actually as a hypnotherapist. And so a lot of our belief systems when it comes to money are things that we have in our unconscious mind, right? So we've learned a lot of our money stories just by what we've seen modeled in front of us. So the important thing to realize is that money is it's not just what you think about money itself. It's also about what you think is possible with money. So it can be something that's very limiting, or it could be something that it's expanding. And I'll give you just a quick story to kind of emphasize this, even with my kids, on how they picked this up. So there was a time where I was really struggling with, finances, and I really didn't talk to my kids a lot about money, but I would tell them like, no, we can't do this, or wait till this holiday, or the next time, or you know and I realized one day when I said, I was taking my kids to Costco, and I told them, okay, we're going to go to Costco. My kid said, oh, we have money, don't we? We must have money. And I said, why do you think that? Because every time we have money, we go to Costco because we spend a lot of money. And so even they picked up on some of those things that I'd never verbalized, but they realized that there was a pattern of like, oh, there's an abundance when we go to Costco. And so those are like money stories that get sometimes created in our minds. So I want to ask you just to think about some of your own money stories. So, go ahead and just drop them in the chat if you feel comfortable. There's no pressure, but I want you to think back about some of the things that you heard from maybe your family when it came to money. Maybe it was things like, oh, you got to work hard for your money. You have to share your money. Maybe it's rich people are greedy. Maybe you heard something like money grows on trees. I want you to really think about what money stories that you heard growing up. And go ahead and drop them in the chat. Lisandra or Bere, will you let me know what's kind of coming up, because I can't see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
So we've got some folks saying money doesn't grow on trees. El dinero no es todo en la vida. Money isn't everything in life. Some folks mentioning kind of thinking twice about spending on something that may be considered a luxury, like a manicure, thinking twice and doubting themselves. Do I have enough money to spend? What else?
Anyone have any empowering money stories? I know we often talk about, some of the difficulties, uh, and some are, but there are also folks that have had maybe empowering stories around money.
Some folks mentioning saving, so being able to be taught to, okay, always put some money away.
Yeah, and this is great because these are all like some of the stories that come up when about our relationship with money. One of my favorite questions to ask people is that last question on the screen, which is, if money were a person you were in a relationship with, what kind of relationship would you be experiencing? And I kind of always think about this in terms of partnership. Like, are you someone that would be clinging, like not wanting to let go of that money and holding on really tight where it feels almost suffocating? Or are you someone that's like very, like just there's a lot of freedom associated with money? Um, and really, awareness is the most important step to rewriting our money story. So I would encourage you to spend some time just getting more acquainted, maybe journaling about some of these questions and seeing what comes up around money. Because whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working in a professional space, those money stories, like I said, can be either very expansive or they can kind of limit us. And so awareness becomes the first step in rewriting those money stories. And so we're going to actually practice rewriting some of those stories right now in real time. So I want you just to take a minute to write down one limiting belief that you have around money. And I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to think about that. So go ahead and write down one limiting belief that you have around money. And you might even notice as you're writing this down, what kind of feelings come up even viscerally. Where do you feel that in your body when you talk about money? Does your jaw get clenched? Do you feel it in your stomach? Do you feel it in your chest? Does it feel stressful for you? And this is all, oh, I was just gonna say, this is all just to start to gain awareness around how we automatically respond to money, right? This is our automatic default.
We've got some folks saying be thankful for what you get, relating to an
Okay.
offer. That when it comes, it goes. I've learned that if you're smart, it can stay. More money, more problems.
Oh, yeah.
My stomach gets tight. I have anxiety. Stomach immediately starts to hurt.
Yeah. So now I want you to take that same sentence, right? So now we have this belief, and I want you to rewrite that belief in a way that feels more empowering to you. So there's an example here that says, I can't figure out money because my family isn't the type that's very good with it. How can we reframe that into a positive statement? So the example is like, I'm a successful manager of my wealth who has transformed old patterns, and I'm using my resources to take good care of myself and my family. And I know, like, I was thinking of this example earlier for myself. It was like, money is so hard to manage. That was one of the stories. Like, it's so, money is so hard to manage. And even making a small shift, like, I'm learning to manage my money, right? Because sometimes it feels really big just to like go from, I have this negative belief or this automatic way of thinking about things into just making it a positive, and it feels like there's no transition there. And so making a little shift like that can make a big difference of like, I'm learning, or I'm learning how to master, or even adding the word yet, like I haven't mastered money management yet, right? That changes the tone. What are some of the empowering statements maybe that are coming up?
So we've got an example here of more money, more responsibility was the negative, and shifting it to more opportunity to create impact, uplift others, and grow if you have more money.
Yeah, I love that one. Anyone else?
Waiting for some more folks to trickle in. Less is more, but instead do more with what you have.
Do more with what you have. And this really comes down to like really deciding which is the voice or the script or narrative um that you get to run with. And one of the things I say is this is part of it, is just like really, really starting to notice what money beliefs exist and making that shift. But then the other side of it is practicing making decisions based off of this new belief. And I'll give you an example. There was a situation some time ago where I was working with another entrepreneur, and we were she was coaching me on it was like another coach. I was working with a coach myself, and we were talking about my own money stories. And I shared some very personal like hardships that I had faced early in my divorce with my kids, and some of the difficulties that came from going from a two-parent household all of a sudden to a single parent household. And at the end of the call, she had said, this is, we had already agreed upon like the price of the coaching or what, and she told me, you know what, I'm going to do something different for you. I'm going to, because I had shared a lot of like the different money stories that I'm going to send you the invoice, and I'm going to leave it as a pay what you can. And you can decide what you want to pay on that invoice. And so I decided, so I made the decision in that moment that I was going to come from a place of abundance. And I paid the entire amount, even though I could have paid less, because I wanted to start acting in a way that aligned with my new belief system, which was, I'm abundant, and like money flows to me. So think about not only what is the statement that you want to create that's more empowering to you, but how can you actually live that out, right? How can you practice, building your muscle around that new belief system in order to reiterate? And we all have heard about like neuroplasticity, right? And the rewiring that goes on our brain. So think about this as like you're the story that once lived in your brain. All right. So I know I heard growing up, money doesn't grow on trees. So a couple of people might have mentioned, um, you know, so I want to talk about specifically how some of our cultural values might impact the way that we perhaps think about money when it comes to negotiating or self-advocating for ourselves at work. you know, I think about things like, you know, be humble, be grateful, resilience, you know, family first, sacrifice. You know, these are all things that, these are all cultural values or narratives that we've been exposed to. So what are some of the ways that you've seen this impact the way that maybe you're going about negotiating or advocating for yourself? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. And you know what? You can even, do they have ability to raise their hand and come off mute?
Yes, feel free to use the Zoom raise hand feature and we can see and call on you. Absolutely.
Yeah, if anyone wants to come off mute, I would invite you to do that as well.
Ruby, we did have a comment earlier regarding sort of ownership, where a dad would say, well, this is my money because they were the breadwinner and the earner in the family versus being able to allow that to be shared between the two parents or the household.
Yeah, that's a common one. I grew up by, and you know, I'm glad to say my dad has shifted his thinking around this, but he used to have a saying that it was like, I say, or I pay, so I say. And it, you know, it was something that actually took very, was very intentional about not bringing that narrative into my household with my children, right? So it could be that there's a story even around like power or dominance or control and in those, in that type of language as well. And it could be too, like that's the way that even for my dad, like that was something that he learned from his father and he had to unlearn that eventually, right? And then I was intentional about also rewriting that script. What else is coming up?
Some folks are mentioning for sure the power dynamic of authority, right? Being afraid to kind of advocate because of that authority figure, whether that's a supervisor or someone else. Someone mentioning not wanting to come off as ungrateful
Yeah.
when spoken to a manager about like a raise or mindset because of that mindset of the culture of being grateful for and accepting what you have. There was an example from an alum saying after Mujeres de HACE, they asked for a raise, then they got it, and was surprised how easy it was to get it.
Yay. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, those are examples of stories that, you know, it can empower us. Again, it can expand the possibilities around money, or it can limit us depending on what those belief systems are. I know that you know, that be humble narrative is really huge. And my mom's always said, be grateful for what, you know, what you get. That actually, that belief system actually cost me $15,000 when I was negotiating a new role. And there was an offer that was made to me. I was so excited. I took it, of course. It was an internal role. And so then the HR person came back and had looked at my previous salary and she said, "Oh, that's too big of a jump. We can't make that. I've got to you know, basically she said like, that's too much of a jump. So we're going to have to redo this offer." And it was $15,000 less because I didn't, you know, have the know-how. And I thought, well, it's still way more than I'm making. Like I should just be grateful for it. I didn't even bother negotiating or advocating for myself. And mostly because I didn't have the tools or language around it, which is why I'm so happy that organizations like HACE exist and that we're teaching this so that you can have the language and know how to do it. But that certainly impacted, you know, whether it impacted whether I asked for it. And kind of like what Olga was saying earlier, it wasn't just the $15,000 I lost. It was also because now all of a sudden there was my salary and it was all the compound interest and the raises that I lost during the process too, not to mention management incentive bonuses. So the important thing to realize with some of our cultural values is that you can honor your culture and you can still ask for more. So as an example, it's like I can be grateful that I'm getting this offer, this opportunity, and I can also demand more money, right? Or make other requests. So one of the like kind of affirmations or mantras that I've been saying is that I'm advocating for myself is honoring the investment that my ancestors also made for me, right? So I'm really learning even myself to rewrite a lot of these narratives.
Ruby, we see a couple of comments in relation to that. Someone speaking about emotional intelligence and turning it into pride instead of pity, right? To continue that success. Some folks mentioning the cultural belief of like it's never enough, never having enough money. And so growing up, even though you have enough for basic needs, still thinking like, is it enough? Do you have enough? So that belief mindset. Also, someone mentioning being indebted to parents, feeling like they need to give back to them in those senior years because of being that child, and so feeling like they need to repay the parents when they grow up in that cultural mindset.
Yeah. And you know what I would have, there's so many different stories, right? And we all come with our different situations. And I think this is the part of really taking some time to unpack some of these stories and really asking yourself, where did these stories come from? Where do these stories come from? Like, is there a voice? Like, do you hear, you know, sometimes I hear certain thoughts or voices and I'm like, oh, that's not my voice. That's my mom's voice, right? And then I have to, or whoever's, right? And I have to ask myself, is this belief system serving me or not? Because maybe it's time to let go if it's not. And maybe it's time to rewrite it. Or maybe it serves me sometimes. And then that means that I need to be aware about when and how I leverage that belief. Right. And sometimes it means, you know, rewriting the script completely. So I'd really encourage you to just like get curious about it and remember that you can decide just because you have the thought or you hear the voice doesn't mean that you have to give it space. You can say, okay, I'm acknowledging you and I'm letting it go because this is what I'm choosing, right? So really empowering your own decisions.
We see some more folks speaking about being afraid to raise their rates in terms of a business or being afraid to ask questions, but changing that mindset, right, and belief to not limit themselves.
Yeah, that's a huge one too, right? Because negotiations and money mindset is not just for professionals in the workplace, but also for entrepreneurs. And that can also be limiting if we are caught up in like money scenarios that will limit our expansion and our impact and growth. Do we want to take a break, Lisandra?
Yeah, so we did have a just a 5 minute brain break, bio break, for folks to get a water, get up, and then we can come back. So is this is a good time?
Okay.
We'll go ahead and take that break and then come back at 16 after the hour.
Okay, perfect. I'll see you then. Do you see the right screen, Lisandra or Bernice?
I'm sharing just for the music
Oh,
purposes.
okay. Gotcha. I was trying to switch it.
I'll stop sharing when we come back. If folks like one more. All right, let me stop sharing. All right, Ruby, feel free to reshare. As you're doing that, and as we come back from a small break, just want to mention some more of the highlights from the chat as we're engaging. Thank you so much for continuing with us as you engage in the chat. I did want to mention some gems that were dropped in there. So some of the stories in relation to cultural and its impact in our financial money mindset. Olga shared some highlights there as well in terms of some advice for advocating for yourself. And then we did have a comment in relation to the space that we've created for today's event being inclusive. So definitely want to highlight that as that is our aim, you know, and purpose for today to continue that inclusivity and that equity in a space where we can all continue to elevate one another. So thank you. And back to you, Ruby.
Okay, you can see my screen all right?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So I want to talk about what negotiation means. And I know that negotiation can be a little scary, and we think about like negotiating the big things, the high risk situations, right? But we are negotiating every day, whether it's what we're going to eat for dinner, what's the show that we're going to be on TV, negotiating phone bills. That's all negotiation. And at the end of the day, negotiation is about reaching an agreement and having alignment. So I want to share a little bit of I want to share a story to really differentiate uh, between distributive negotiation and integrative negotiation. So let me show you the difference, how it is between like negotiating against someone versus with them. So I want you to tell you a story about Marisol and Daniela. They were both offered leadership roles. They had the same titles, the same company, similar experience, but they negotiated very differently. So Marisol walked into her negotiation experience, her negotiation conversation really nervous, afraid to ask for what she wanted. And she kept thinking to herself, like, I don't want to sound ungrateful. I really need this job. I hope they pick me. I'm just going to take what they offer because, I need this. And she performed great at her interview, right? But she only sees the job as getting the win, and she doesn't really make any ask. And she does get the jobs. But in the meantime, she's probably left some money on the table along with some of the influence. Daniela, on the other hand, she does her homework, right? Before she even comes into the interview, she's done her market data research. She's formulated her interview responses. She's thought about the stories of how she's made impact. She knows the values of the company. She knows her values and how they align beyond just, she's looking beyond salary. She's thinking about flexibility and visibility on certain projects. And she's thinking about like, is this a good fit long term? Are we mutually aligned? And as a result, she also gets the job, right? But she's getting higher salary. She's getting more opportunity. She's already negotiated leadership training and mentorship for within her company. So it's the same company, but two very different approaches because one is negotiated out of that fear and the other one is negotiated from a place of belief and collaboration. And so when we look at this, this is the difference between the distributed negotiation and the integrative negotiations. Marisol, who was practicing that distributive kind of negotiations, that was like, she was looking at there's a win and a lose, right? And versus Daniela was really looking at like, hey, how is this a win-win? How can we both win? I'm going to bring my skill set, and the company is going to give me a really good salary, but they're going to support me in all of these other ways. And the big difference here is that one is really just about like a short-term win, and the other one is long-term sustainability. It's always a conversation around, is there alignment? Is there alignment, and is there agreement? So I just want you to remember that you are always worth the ask. Okay. You are always worth the ask. And understanding these differences is important. And they're also important to realize that even these two models aren't necessarily, good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just about knowing when to leverage it. For example, if you were going to purchase a car or negotiate a new lease on an apartment, like you're kind of looking for more of that distribution negotiation, right? Like you want an answer that's going to benefit you fast, but something where you're thinking about your career planning, your career trajectory. You want a win-win situation, right? You want to feel aligned, you want to feel appreciated, you want to feel like you're bringing your skills, and you want to be compensated and rewarded, for the knowledge, time, resources, energy that you're bringing and your expertise. So just remember that collaboration is always going to win, right? And when we're thinking about the difference between distributive and integrative negotiations, it's really, I want you to imagine a pie, right? The holidays are coming up. I don't know what your favorite pie is. My favorite pie is pumpkin pie. And as you think about pie, right? Distributive negotiation framework is like, I just want my slice of the pie, right? Like I want my slice of the pie. This is how big the pie is. When you think about the integrative negotiation, you're thinking about like, hey, I'm actually going to buy a bigger pie. I'm going to bake a bigger pie. So it's not just about a slice. It could be like, I'm going to have pie and I'm going to have the a la mode on the side. Right. And then like I'm gonna drizzle some chocolate over it or whatever it is. Listen, I'm a foodie. I'm always gonna bring the food in here. But so in regards to how this could look for salary, it means that you're not just looking at, oh, what's my compensation going to be? It's also looking at things of, can I get flex time? Is there childcare, like, reimbursement? What does a healthcare plan look like? Are they going to pay for things around my home office? Will they give me a bump in a leadership title? What are my benefits, right? So you're thinking about other things in addition to just the salary. Like, how else can we negotiate it? And even if you're an entrepreneur, it could be things like, negotiating, oh, will you give me a testimony? Can I have a copy of that recording where I presented at? There are other things that you can still negotiate, even as an entrepreneur. So really think about, anchoring in on what it is that you want, thinking about what are the key elements of bargaining. Which model should I use? Should I use the distributed approach for what my ask for is? Or should I move into an integrative approach where it's really about more of the collaboration and finding that win-win? And just remember that it's about using the right approach for the right situation, but you have to be prepared to know about that before you even walk into the room. Any comments or questions on there that popping up?
We see some folks mentioning that these can also be referenced as like leadership styles and approaches.
Yeah, and just being adaptable to which one works best for the situation that you're in.
Some folks appreciating the reminders of being able to have those additional, benefits in addition to just the salary piece or the negotiation.
Yeah. Great. All right. who here, raise your hand or give me, raise the virtual hand. Let me know who here has ever felt their emotions get hijacked in the middle of a negotiation. Like maybe you're about to walk into negotiation, your heart is pounding out of your chest, right? Like you can't breathe. Maybe you feel like you get frozen in the moment. Okay, what I'm going to tell you is that part of that is that we have to learn how to master emotions, because mastering emotions is also mastering influence. Emotions are not a weakness, but unmanaged emotions are. Okay, so this is really key. Like you can have your feelings, it's totally fine, they're totally valid, and you have to learn how to manage them for the situation, right? So that could be, developing some of these calming techniques, right? Deep breathing, right? Maybe that means doing preparation before you even go in and interview is like maybe you're doing those role plays, figuring out what's the thing that's going to trigger you. Role plays, I know they're corny, right? I always think they're kind of corny, and I'm like, oh, this is like I always do so bad in role plays. But the good thing about role plays is you can be silly, you can make mistakes, you can answer things wrong, and then you look for those gaps in terms of like, okay, how could I say this better? Or maybe this question triggered me. What was it about it that triggered me, so that you're ready, so that you're ready to respond to it, right? um I think inherently our culture really values harmony, and we those are part of our values, right? We think about like personalismo and simpatía, and keeping the peace, and that is absolutely beautiful, and I love those things about our culture. But that can also sometimes make things a little harder because we're not used to asserting ourselves. And so we have to remember that we've got to get comfortable and build our muscles around understanding some of our money stories, making sure that we deal with it before we get in that room of negotiations, really reframing some of our negative stories into positive ones, and then making sure that we're also feeling confident about our beliefs, because it's very difficult to ask for money if you don't believe in yourself, right? If you say that shaking or um apprehensively, like can you imagine how the other person is receiving it if you're not confident in your ask, and then you're expecting them to be confident in you? No, so you want to make sure that you are emotionally regulated, um so that you don't feel that resistance or that friction. I feel like I might have missed a slide. Oh, I did miss a slide. Okay, I'm going to go back to this one here. So just remember that before you go into negotiations, yes, it can feel scary and you can still make the ask, right? But doing the preparation is going to alleviate that. So when you're negotiating, you want to remember that, again, because I'm all about the food, it's kind of like a good meal, right? You just don't serve the main course. You've got to prepare. You've got to do the presentation, you've got to do the plating. And so that's what you're doing when you're preparing for your negotiations. You are going to have a process too, right? And so that process is going to be that initial laying the groundwork and preparing. So you want to make sure that you're doing your research. One of the things that I didn't know when it came to salary negotiation, again, because I was not really taught, was that your salary shouldn't be negotiated based off of your previous salary. It should always be negotiated based on market value of the role. So that was like one of the things that I ran into when I told you about that story about losing $15,000 and leaving it on the table. Was I could have came back and said the market value of this role is XYZ. It doesn't matter what my previous salary was. This is what this role pays, right? And I could have had documentation and study around that. I didn't know, and so that's what prevented me from doing it. But that's why I share the stories, so that never happens to other folks in their own journeys. So really thinking about, the research, the market value of the role. are your values aligned to the organization's values? And then really think about, what are your non-negotiables? What is it that where are you willing to negotiate? What's your lowest, like lowest area of negotiation? Like I absolutely refuse to take less than X number, or if it doesn't meet these these factors. It could be, what would be the worst outcome? What am I willing to walk away from? And this really helps you prioritize some of the goals and what's important to you. And then the other thing is, the second part is like exchanging information, right? And the actual negotiations. So learning about, what's the win-win? How are you a good fit? Making sure that you're connecting with the other person. Are you actually listening to what they're saying? Are you listening to not just what they're saying, but what's underneath of what they might not be saying, right? Are you understanding what are some of the problems that they're facing where you can be a solution, where you can position yourself as a solution, right? You want to develop trust and rapport with that person. And so that's the things that you're going to have in there during that question, making sure that you're asking clarifying questions so that you can find a win-win and it feels good. And then that last stage is really about, kind of closing the deal, right? And so maybe there's some reflection to do after the scenario. Maybe you get a yes, and that's awesome. And maybe it's a no. Maybe there's still an area to keep a door open or to strengthen that relationship. Maybe there's documentation that you need to follow up on, right? Even doing things like thank you emails. I know that, with the job front being in the way it is, it can seem very tedious. But what if it's between you and one other candidate, and maybe that follow-up is enough to bring you over as the person that's best fit for the role. And then also every time that you go through the process of negotiating, just take some time to really reflect. Hey, what did I do? What did I do well? What do I need to work on? Was there something that triggered me, that caught me off guard, that I wasn't prepared for? How do I want to answer that question the next time that it presents itself? So really reflecting on any progress that you've made, and looking at the areas of opportunity, but also celebrating your success in it too, right? Because that's also very important. So many times we're just looking at what's next that we don't realize, the things that we did do well. And so I want to emphasize really celebrating those things. So remember, it's about preparation, communication during the conversation, and then really mastering that strong closing or follow through at the end.
We've got quite a couple of comments in the chat here, so definitely lots of gems. Some folks mentioning growth comes through processing difficult emotions, to your point about emotional intelligence, rather than denying them. Some folks mentioning some federal laws that prohibit about 20 states to actually ask you about salary history. So definitely staying informed on the laws in your state as well. And some folks mentioning being prepared to share your accomplishments, research salary, market rate.
Yeah, great tips. So and then, we talked about the emotional intelligence here. So just remember that the clearer that you are, I think I'm going to hand this back to you.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. The clearer that you are in your ask, and the more that you do your homework, the more of a position of power that you're going to feel in, that you're in during that conversation, right? You're going to be in a position of influence and being able to, I want you to think about it almost like a kayak, if anyone likes to go kayaking, right? If you go into it not prepared in what direction, and you're just letting your oars go in any way, you're going to go wherever the current takes you, right? And what you want to do is you want to come in prepared, knowing in what direction and which way your orders are going to go so that you can move that conversation so that you get to the destination that you want. And with
Thank
that,
you so
I'll hand
much.
it to you.
Thank you. Such important gems. There was so much interaction. I couldn't keep up with it. So thank you for all those great gems that you shared with us. So as I mentioned, quite a couple things in the chat, and we are definitely collecting all of this knowledge, all of the gems being dropped, and the different resources. There's quite a couple of links in there as well. So we will be sending a post-event recap with all the different resources that you've seen throughout, but then also some additional ones for you all to have and really equip you with that knowledge and those tools that you can really leverage. So don't fret about capturing it all. We will send that to you in a post-event recap. So thank you, Ruby, for walking us through that. And I want to mention once again that some of these concepts of negotiation, money mindset, we do teach about in our leadership program. So definitely encourage you to check out our Mujeres de HACE and Mujeres de HACE Entrepreneurs program, where we'll still be going more in depth into some of these topics and would love to elevate our Latina women. So let me go ahead and reshare my screen here and move on to the next portion of our event today, and really bring up to the virtual stage Patricia Mota, our president and CEO of HACE. As we do that, I'll go ahead and say a little bit more about Patricia for those who aren't as familiar. So, Patricia is an innovative trailblazer, a startup entrepreneur, an author, connector, public speaker, and just a really compassionate leader. I have come to know her very well working here at HACE to really be the voice and exemplifying our mission here at the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement. She just celebrated her quinceañera recently, so we were so excited to share that milestone with her, and really celebrate the impact that she's had on our organization. And just to share a little bit more, as president and CEO, she does lead our strategy, fundraising and development, leadership programs, and expanding organizational reach to a national and even international scale. If you didn't know, ASE is also international, so we do have that reach as well beyond the US. Patricia's story is really one of transition and is representative of so many of our stories, and those who have positively impacted by the programs that we offer, the opportunities that we offer through ASE. So Patricia is the perfect example of that. So love to bring up to a virtual stage our president and CEO. Patricia, I'll turn it over to you.
Gracias, Lisandra, for the kind introduction. And wow, what a incredible afternoon of learning, reflection, and empowerment. I love the engagement that's going on, the conversations. And I just want to take a deep breath together and celebrate this moment, the collective energy, the stories, the commitments that are coming through, that I see are coming through, whether you did share them or that I know that it's coming to you personally, that make Latina Equal Pay Day not just a date, but a movement. And speaking of movements, as was mentioned earlier, right, we are celebrating 10 years, and I want to acknowledge you all may or may not be able to see the t-shirt that some of us are wearing. So I'll move back a little bit. So it says 10 años en la lucha, so 10 years in the fight, and you still owe us. So I know a lot of our committee leaders and are wearing the shirts, and some are on the way. But that's to also acknowledge the leaders, the collective, and that's led by Monica Ramirez and the presidents of Justice for Migrant Women, and a lot of the work and efforts that have been done to ensure that collectively we are sharing the same data points, aligned and sharing this movement. You know, today, speaking of collectively, we've heard some powerful insights from Michelle from the Aries Foundation, kicking us off, delivering remarks on, you know, money as justice, advocacy, change, generational wealth. Olga reminding us that reframing our financial narratives is an act of justice, right, for ourselves, for our families, and for generations to come. And Ruby, who is equipping us with tools to ask for our worth and to be able to negotiate with confidence. And that takes reflection and understanding how our values, our cultura comes to play, right? And that self-awareness is huge. Now it's our turn to commit. And I invite each of you right now, whether you write it down on a piece of paper or you drop it in the chat, to drop one key action that you're taking. and drop it in the chat. Feel free to write it down on a sheet of paper, whatever you're most comfortable with. All right, Lisette, speaking up. Check my bank account more often, but I love that. More prep work. Keep them coming. Market research, understanding, talking back to the ERG, understanding your environment, investing, sharing more information. Keep them coming because I'm sure they'll inspire others as you share your commitment and your action, because every action or commitment, big or small, moves us all closer to equity again. And I cannot emphasize enough, not just for yourselves, but you're talking about the families and the communities that we represent. I know there was mention of resources throughout today's conversation. I know they were dropped in the chat. We'll continue to drop them in the chat, but I know there will be a follow-up email that will be sent to everyone, because as we continue this work, it's important that you know that you're not alone. Your Asset Familia, the people that you got to meet today, many, many others that are also not here are here to support you. And one of them that I am between is our We All Grow network and our Amigahood circles, which we'll get to engage with as well. We have our board chair, Alina Moran, in the house as well, who always reminds us that a part of our commitment in building equity is donating, right? So at ASE, as a 501c3 organization, especially many organizations in the current climate, could use your financial support as a commitment, and that is an investment. That is an investment as well, making sure that these types of resources continue to show up for ourselves and our youth and the next generation. So our team will drop these resources and how you can donate also in the chat. Because we have to remember that the power of this movement is in comunidad, and we rise by lifting others. And that starts with the conversations, connections, and the courage. And before I close, at least with my remarks, I want to thank all of our amazing speakers, Michelle Armstrong, Olga Camargo, and Ruby Garcia, for your wisdom and leadership. If you have not connected with them on LinkedIn, again, that's another great tool. Make sure that you're sending messages. Thank you to our producer, Haylene, who's on our staff, our host, Lisandra, our engagement from Bobby and Berenice. You'll see them, give them a wave. They really work together to show up and to contribute, to share your voice, our voice today. And Latina Equal Pay Day reminds us how much value we bring. And I hope, we heard it in the statistics, the 86%, right? We cannot forget that we estamos mandando en la casa, right? We are leaders in our households, and we have to really own up to that in terms of decisions that are being made day in and day out. And how much, remind ourselves that how much of the work still lies ahead. But today proved that when Latinas come together, and our allies, because I know we have some allies in the room, we are unstoppable. So as we move into our Amigahood circles, for those that are sticking around, I encourage you to take this energy that you've shared, that you brought for one another. Thank you, to share, connect, and keep building those relationships so that we can continue to drive towards collective growth together. Thank you for being here. Let's continue to show up, speak up, and stand up, because lo merecemos and we are worth it. We deserve it and we are worth it. Gracias.
Gracias, Patricia. Thank you so much for those words. I'll take us back here into our program. So don't forget, as has been mentioned today, know your worth, advocate, unite, use your community, elevate your skills, all of the gems that we learned today. We would like an opportunity for you all to interact with one another and to engage as well. Now that you've learned so many great things, you've heard from so many great speakers today, we'd love for you to share some of what you're thinking, your thoughts, your knowledge, and be able to be in community, in comunidad with one another. So we have our Amigahood circles that we're setting up as breakout rooms. And so I'll have my colleagues go ahead and open up those breakout rooms. What you'll do is select the topic that most interests you, that you'd like to go into. So you'll see the name of the breakout group is a different topic. So feel free to look through those, and then you can self-select and go into your breakout room of interest. And we'll have at least between 12 minutes or so to be able to interact in those breakout rooms before we close out and bring you back to the main room. So go ahead and enjoy those, network, mentor, coach, all of it, so you can speak more about some of the gems you learned today. Yes, let us know if you're not able to get into any room and we can certainly move you.
Yeah, I'm not figuring out how to do that. You can just move me. That'd be great. Maribel Jimenez.
Do you have a particular interest, Mariben?
I don't know what the topics are.
Oh, they don't pop up for you. Okay.
Mm-mm.
So you
Yeah.
have to hit, if you click on the join breakout room button at the bottom, all of the breakout rooms will appear on the screen, and then you'll be able to join the one that you want.
Got it. I see it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ruby. All right, welcome back. Looks like some folks are finishing up their conversations as the room's closed, so I'll give it another minute or so. That's always good to see. That means they're conversating to the last minute. Right. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Looks like you had some amazing conversations up until the last minute, so that's always great sign. So thank you for engaging with us today. It was really an honor to just have you here for this amazing event. As you see, we continue la lucha, continue that fight. And so we definitely encourage you to take some reflection time of everything you learned today, the speakers you heard from, and all of the gems that were dropped today to really take what fits in your toolkit, what you can leverage now and maybe in the future to continue to elevate yourself, your worth, and not forget about that. We have on the screen a couple different ways that you can continue to engage with us. We do put on events throughout the year, and we have several professional development opportunities that we've mentioned before, leadership programs as well. So feel free to follow us on all of our social networks. You can also join our Amigahood app as well to engage with other fellow like-minded Latinas and be in comunidad. So I'd like to, before we close out, if you all can give me one word of how you're feeling right now in the chat. So just one word to describe how you're feeling right now after this amazing event. All right, got the trends of empowerment, hopeful, seen, hyped, yes, understood, inspired, enthused, solidarity, absolutely. Okay, lots of positive vibes for sure. Love to see it. Thank you again for joining us and being in community. It was my pleasure to host the event today. We hope that you stay connected to us and hope to see you at a future HACE event. And welcome if you haven't seen us before, welcome to our comunidad. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Mil gracias.
Bye. Thank you.